Today we're going to demonstrate this ATEX rated drum handler for lifting and tipping steel, plastic and fibreboard drums. The unit's air powered for ATEX or EX zoned areas, so we have an airline or pneumatic hose connected to the machine to power all the functions. This machine's fully powered, so the unit drives through power and the lift, clamping and rotation is all powered. First of all, we pull our tiller down. This activates the drive system. The drive system is disabled with the tiller in the upright position, and it's also disabled when it's in the fully down position. We drive the unit forward by pressing these push buttons on the rear, so we drive forward. Now, it's important we check that our clamp pads are in the centre line of the drum, so I'm going to come forward a very slight touch more. We want to make sure that the centre of the drum is on the centre of rotation, and we want our clamp pads to be in the middle of the drum, so you don't want to be too high or too low. Once we position like this, we have our panel here with all our controls, and on the right hand side we have the clamp controls. So to clamp the drum, we press our clamp button. While I was clamping the drum, I'm watching the pressure gauge to check that the needle on the gauge goes into the green section. The green section says that we have adequate clamp pressure around the drum to lift and to tip it. First of all, we'll lift it partially off the floor. On this model, we have a speed control for the drive system. So by screwing this control down, we can actually slow down the drive system. So I'm going to screw it right the way down and then open it up slightly. And this just allows us to tweak the unit forward at a very slow speed. So if we're tipping a very full or a drum which is 95% full, we can avoid spilling any of the product. We go a little bit more. Okay, and then in position, we press the tip function to tip the drum into our vessel. Bring the unit forward a little bit. Once empty, we can return. Drive the unit backwards. And lower down. By having a fully powered machine, there's minimal effort for the operator. It's simply using the controls and monitoring the load, making sure it's clamped safely at all times, and making sure there's no one in front of the machine when we're using it. Once we place the drum on the floor, to unclamp we need to use both hands, and this is a safety feature. So we have two buttons, two unclamp buttons, and with two hands we press unclamp simultaneously. We need to hold the unclamp buttons until the clamp pressure goes down to 0. It's important that the gauge is fully at 0 before we release the unclamp buttons. Now ready to go get another drum. We've now got this blue plastic Mauser drum. Drive forward again. Making sure we're lined up, so that looks pretty good to me. For soft drums like plastic and fibreboard drums, we have a yellow section on the pressure gauge. When we press our clamp button, because it's a soft plastic drum, we don't want to clamp it fully and really squeeze it too hard. So in this section we can sit in the yellow section on the gauge, and this means caution, and we need to monitor it and make sure it's clamped securely at all times. So we press a clamp button. Can take it off, let the pressure gauge settle, a little bit more clamp. So we're in the yellow section there. Visually inspecting the drum, I'm happy that it's clamped, but what I'm going to do is just lift it partially off the ground. I'm just checking that there's no give or no movement in the drum. So I'm happy that's secure. I can then lift to full height. And then we'll begin our rotation. With the controls on the rear panel, this tiller needs to be in the upright position to allow these controls to be used. So when we're driving the unit, we pull the tiller down in reverse. We're going to increase our speed. And then once the tiller's in the upright, we can again use the controls to return to vertical. This is an ATEX model, air-powered. We also offer a load cell weighing system if you need to weigh your drums or weigh the material as you decant out into a vessel. To unclamp the drum, with two hands, pressing our unclamp buttons. Our gauge has reached 0, so we can now move the unit away and get another drum. We're now looking at the rear control panel of the machine. On the left we have our air connection, which supplies the machine with compressed air to power all the functions. At the rear we have our tiller assembly. If we let go of the tiller, you'll see it returns to the vertical automatically. In this position, the drive buttons are disabled. Also, if we move it into a fully horizontal position, the drive is also disabled. We need the tiller to be in the operating range in order for these drive controls to function. If we want to use any buttons on the panel, we also need to let the tiller be fully vertical or fully horizontal. The buttons here is green for drive forward, blue for reverse. We also have an emergency stop button. If we were reversing the machine and this button pressed against our body, it would disable and cut all the functions and prevent the machine reversing towards us. To reset, we twist it clockwise and it pops back out. We also have a horn here on the top of the tiller. Moving to our controls here, we have our lift and tip buttons on the left-hand side. So we press lift and lower, and tip, return. Very simple. On this side, we have our clamp buttons. You'll notice there's 3 buttons for clamp. We have a central clamp button and 2 buttons for unclamp. This is a safety system, and the idea is that you need to use both hands and make a very conscious decision to unclamp the drum. I'll show you this now. So we press the clamp button. The arms of the unit come together, and I can see the needle on our pressure gauge increasing. We haven't got a drum in the unit, but the needle comes up into the green segment as if we had a drum compressed in the arms. When we want to unclamp, we need to use 2 hands and press unclamp at the same time on both sides. We hold these buttons until the clamp pressure gauge goes down to 0. Additionally, a safety feature on this machine is that if the drum is raised to height, we cannot unclamp even if we press the buttons, and this is to prevent an accidental unclamping of the drum. Along the top here, we have a speed control for the drive system. If we want to drive slower, we turn this clockwise, and if we want to drive faster, we rotate it anti-clockwise. Also, an additional emergency stop button. Press it down to cut all the power and turn it clockwise to reset the machine.